What is one of the most ignored principles of practicing the Mucusless Diet Healing System that's super important, very transformative, but very few people even think about it or talk about it? We are talking about the almighty sun bath, sunbathing. Stay tuned. I'm Professor Spira. I practice something called the Mucusless Diet Healing System. Have done so for over 23 years. I've had the privilege of helping thousands of people transform their lives using the simple principles that are found in this book, Mucusless Diet Healing System. And today we are going to talk about one of those principles, and it's one of the most ignored principles. It's misunderstood. When I hear people talk about it, I cringe because usually the whole extent of talking about the sun is this vitamin D theories and get enough vitamin D. If you don't get enough sun, then take vitamin D supplements and all this kind of nonsense. So you're in luck today because we're not going to talk about any of those problematic, unnecessary, useless theories. We're not getting into that today. We're going to talk about how can the sun, when used in connection with the Mucusless Diet Healing System, with the transition diet, with short-term fasting, with colon irrigation, cleaning out the colon and the intestines of all the slime and the filth and the parasites. What role does the sun play in that? And when you incorporate this, how can it improve your practice? How can it allow you to speed up the elimination process or be required to overcome certain challenges, certain roadblocks in your pursuit of physiological liberation? So sunbathing. Let's read in here, excerpt from Mucusless Diet Healing System, where Arnold Ehret is talking about sun baths, sun bathing. Ehret says, sun baths. Whenever you have an opportunity of doing so, take a sun bath. In the beginning, do not exceed 20 to 30 minutes and keep the head covered. On, quote, bad days, days of great elimination, stay cool. The cleaner you become, the more you will enjoy the sun bath and the longer you will remain. You will also find that you can stand it much warmer. A short, cool shower or a cool rub with a towel dampened in cold water immediately after the sun bath is good. The sun bath is an excellent invisible waste eliminator, and it rejuvenates the skin, causing it to become silk-like and coloring it a natural brown. Civilized man and woman of our race show by their white skin that they are sick from birth on. They inherit the mucused white blood corpuscles, the sign of death. As all of the clothing, I know some of y'all are like, wait a minute, what did he say? Well, okay, we'll talk about this in a second. As all of the clothing should be removed during a sunbath, a small enclosure just long enough to lie in should be built in your backyard or even on the roof, away from prying, inquisitive eyes. The clothing of civilization has made it impossible for humans to secure their proper quota of the life-giving power of fresh air and sunshine, so essential to health and happiness. The direct rays of the sun on the naked body supply the electricity, energy, and vitality to the human storage battery, renewing it in vigor, strength, and virility. All right, so that's the sun bath. First, let's start with invisible waste eliminator. What are we always talking about here when we're talking about the Mucusless Diet Healing System? We are talking about elimination. We're not talking about your macros and your calories and get enough vitamins and get your potassium and these nutrients. And we'll talk a little bit about minerals that are in the fruits and the vegetables. Why are we talking about the minerals? Because they help eliminate. We are an elimination paradigm. Most people, most society is in what we call an additive principle, or it's an additive paradigm where it's this idea you have to eat certain things, get your essential amino acids. You can only get it through food. You have to eat certain food. That certain food is disease causing and it's going to age you quicker, but you have to eat it because it's essential. Well, who said? We got people that's practicing Mucusless diet that haven't eaten essential fatty acids foods in over 40, 50 years. And they're thriving at a higher level than people that take supplements for this stuff every day. So what are we talking about? Like we say, the Mucusless Diet Healing System, it trashes anything that they've come up with in standard nutrition theory, standard dietetics. As soon as you start talking about get your calories. What's your calorie quota for the day? Your macros and your potassium levels and your glucose and all blood pressure, blood sugar. And once you start getting into all of that stuff, you're no longer in the realm of elimination, because you don't need to use all that terminology, all this stuff that makes people feel smart. Like, oh, that sounds really scientific and impressive. Doesn't mean anything, because unless you're talking about elimination, we're really not talking about anything. Because elimination is the beginning and the ending of when you're talking about real vitality and real health. How effective is the body eliminating? Analyze the kidneys, analyze the skin. When we say invisible waste eliminator, that sun is getting in here, and if you're constipated, you hate being in the sun. You can't stand the heat, you can't stand the sun. Your pores, if they're not open to be able to sweat, so I'm out here in the sun right now, my body is sweating perfectly fine. I don't have weird things that's gonna inhibit antiperspirant. So that's one of the most ridiculous and stupid things ever to be conceived of by humans. An anti-perspiring powder or substance that you put on your skin. You know how toxic that stuff is. And then people say, oh, well, they wonder why do I have certain lymph cancers somewhere? And we got to start living more natural lives, folks. So I'm just sorry. We got to figure out what we need to do, getting away from all of this. If you're not prepared to eat it, it shouldn't touch your body. Some soaps and all these different deodorants and stuff. If you can't eat it, then you really shouldn't be putting it on your body. That's connected to this, where we're talking about the consciousness. When you understand how important it is to get the sun, as Ehret's saying, to get your quota for the human storage battery, renewing it in vigor. What are we talking about? Now, I could break that down further to get into the endocrine system and really even add a disclaimer, because if you have a weakened adrenal system, adrenal glands or endocrine system, then you're gonna wanna be more careful with the sun. You will want to be more careful with the sun, because if your adrenals aren't potent enough to recharge, because they're gonna, if you're in some hot sun for long, depending on how long you're in it, it takes away, it's like a charge of that battery. It's gonna take a little bit away, and if you overdo it, you can have some problems. So whether it's a skin situation where it's harder for your skin to be able to deal with the sun, or if it's a adrenal situation where, because you don't wanna get to a point where you have a sunbath, but then after it, you're feeling fatigued, or the next morning you feel fatigued, then you've overdone it. If all you can do is get in the sun for 10 minutes, that's better than nothing, and don't overdo it. Once you get 10 minutes and get to 15 minutes, get to 20 minutes, get to 30 minutes, get to 60 minutes, and so on and so forth. When I started practicing the Mucusless diet, I had periods, I was doing sunbaths, like 3-hour-long sunbaths. Now, I'm not telling anybody to do that, but I saw the value of how important these baths were, and it was really like I'd almost call them sun meditations, because as I'm laying there, and I'm having a conversation with the sun, with this, I feel like I'm being imbued with, and all this wisdom is being downloaded as I'm laying there basking in this sun. And I was at a college campus, and I used to sunbath on a bench that was right in front, kind of in the back, but but people walk by there, and it was just like, what's this crazy dude out here laying down? I mean, that was what people would be saying or thinking. I didn't care. This is my sunbath. Why aren't you sunbathing? You know what I mean? It's like, why, when's the last time you sunbathed? But that's everybody's mindset was someplace else. It was not on health. It was not on trying to commune with nature in any way. It's like, yeah, you're in the city, you're in all this kind of stuff. You could live in New York or some type of urban environment. You still got to find places to get your sun, whether it's a park, it's up on the rooftop, it's a friend's rooftop. There's no excuse. You have to get it. You have to get this sun. And there's been a number of folks that I've worked with where they had their diet on point, and they were working with the transition diet and trying to get everything together, but certain things really weren't feeling good, or there were certain eliminations they weren't having. And I asked them, well, when's the last time you did some sunbathing? It's like, oh, well, I really haven't done that. Go do some sunbathing every day. If the sun is out and it's warm enough, go out there, get the sun, open up those pores, do the air baths. Ehret also talks in this chapter about this concept, air baths or little water baths, or just open up your pores, go out in the sun and bask. And that does get into what I was talking about there, as I lay there, and I really felt like that. It was really a very spiritual experience for me. when I started practicing the diet and I started sunbathing, I really just was laying there, and it was like I just felt like I could be there all day. I was getting this download. It was just energizing my cells, and like this electricity. It's like truly being charged up, because we're really solar. One of the things that I noticed in this time period when we're talking about like skin and stuff is I used to look at my skin, and you can't see it on the video, but but when the sun hits it, it shines and glows on like each cell on a scale skin scales, or it looks kind of like a little scale, but on the really minute level, it's almost like each little skin cell area is a solar panel. And that's what it looked like to me, and that's what it felt like. It's like my whole skin, my body is made up of all of these little solar panels, and you need to go get some sun. You need to get out there and get these solar panels going. And like I said, it's gonna force you to make sure your pores are open. Because if you're going out and it's hot and you don't start sweating, then something's wrong. Then we have to go deeper and see what obstruction is there that's preventing you from perspiring properly. It's preventing you from making you feel sick just being in the sun. Some people can't handle very little period of time. Now, the controversial topic Arnold Ehret mentions in here, he's talking about the white race and these kind of things. This is one of the things that made Professor Arnold Ehret truly controversial, and it's not always something that I talk about a lot here because it's a touchy subject. We're talking about skin color and all that kind of stuff. So Ehret has this controversial topic. It's the civilized men and women of our race, meaning Europeans, and he's talking to Europeans basically, of our race, show by their white skin that they are sick from birth on. They inherit the mucused white blood corpuscles, the sign of death. So this was one of the most controversial things that Professor Arnold Ehret brought, was this idea that having darker skin is better. Because you go back to the Victorian era in Europe, the lighter your skin was meant you were higher status, because you didn't have to go out with the peasants and be exposed to the sun. You could be inside and lavish and have your great meals and banquets and all this parties and stuff. So this association of the whiter you were, the lighter you were, the better from a Victorian European perspective. This idea where you have people of all races sunbathing or trying to expose, I mean, they literally have a industry of tanning beds. That would have never happened in the 1800s because the whiter you were was where the privilege was. But people like Professor Arnold Ehret, single-handedly, him along with other back-to-naturists, was at the forefront of changing the perspective of the mainstream to desire to have darker skin. And from Ehret's perspective, the cleaner you get, the darker you're gonna get, the more the sun is able to actually work with you. When you're super constipated, you can't handle the sun at all. It's miserable. You can't handle the heat. It's the opposite of what a lot of the Wim Hof folks and all the people, the cold plunge culture, where it's like, yeah, it's how long can you stay in the frozen stuff? And our thing is like, well, how many hours can you stay nude in the sun? Can you do 4 hours? I used to do 4 hours. That's the most. I usually didn't do more than 4 hours, but I've done 4-hour sun baths. A lot of those cold plunge people couldn't last a real sun bath. They couldn't do that for more than an hour. Or if they did, they'd go home and they have all kinds of sunburns, and their adrenals would probably be even more messed up than it's already gonna be from all the cold plunges. All that cold plunge stuff is not good for your skin. In my opinion, when I see folks that do a lot of that kind of stuff, their skin is way more aged than somebody that just eats fruits and vegetables and gets sun every day. Generally, the skin of people that do those kinds of things is a little more youthful, more elastic. There's another place in here where Ehret talks about that dynamic of not overstretching that elasticity. That's the stuff that starts to make you look older and older. And that's what a lot of folks are doing with the cold plunges and that kind of stuff. I'm not a fan or on board with any of that. I get what they're trying to do. It's unnatural stimulation. It's still unnatural stimulation. Whether they're eating it, taking some kind of supplement, or jumping into a cold plunge and into a hot thing in the sauna and all this kind of stuff, it very aggressively overtaxes the adrenal glands unnecessarily. Then down the road, when people start to feel super fatigued, or when it's time to be bedridden and get in the wheelchair, then they're like, oh, what, oh, I lived life great. It's like, man, you could have avoided the nursing home. You could have avoided the wheelchair if you would have used the principles that we're talking about, rational principles of real health, real being grounded in nature. So we'll throw up the image of Professor Arnold Ehret. Elsewhere in the book, he talks about how people thought that he was from another race. So when he started off, here's the before and after of Arnold Ehret. So before, a very light-skinned, white-skinned German person, and on the right, that's what Ehret looked like when he was in the midst of who knows how long he'd been fasting or eating nothing but fruit, getting sun every day. Professor Arnold Ehret loved camping. He loved just living out in nature, being out in the wilderness and building the fires and all that kind of stuff. And so this picture is Arnold Ehret, where he's actually at a campsite along with some friends, and he's just out there. But you can see how dark his skin is. And that is, you had to combine the Mucusless diet. Because even without the sun, you change your diet, you start to notice that your skin starts to look better and it gets a little bit darker. And when you combine that with the sun, then all of a sudden the skin turns into something that most people have, they don't even have a reference for it. Somebody thought I was like half my age the other day. They wouldn't believe when I told them how old I was. They were like, I told them to guess, and they was like, oh, this is what I think you are. And I'm like, no. add about 15 years of that, and they're like, what? But to me, I'm just normal. Like what I'm doing is really average, because my body started off being very average to below average in terms of physiological prowess. What I gained came from work, hard work, and really applying the system. But you bring people that aren't chronically sick to the Mucusless diet. You bring people who were born with some athletic gifts. I wasn't born with no real athletic gifts or any real great physiological gifts. I had to work real hard for a lot of what I've been able to gain. But there's people that got a lot of great fitness things that's natural to them, and other attributes, and you use whatever you have. It's like you use what you have. But what I'm saying is, where I'm at and what I do, that's average. That should be average. Should be where the average human is in terms of health and vitality, slowing down the aging process. There's going to be people that would come that would be able to look way younger than me, way longer, just because they're starting off with a better situation. Other people is going to be able to work on my physical fitness, and some people think what I'm doing is impressive, but I don't. To me, it's just average. But people should be running circles around me, folks that come into this that have those gifts, that have some of those gifts. But what I try to show is, if you don't have any of those gifts, what are we capable of as a human species? What can we do on this path with the Mucusless Diet Healing System? But you have to apply and practice the system at a high level. So that's the transition diet, the fasting, colon irrigation, and of course, sunbathing, getting your daily dose of sun, super important. I want to thank you so much for tuning in. And if you'd like to talk with me directly, work with me directly, I would like to invite you to join our membership program, Mucus-free Life membership. Go down below, click the link. We have a bunch of resources for you, a rapid start course where if you're kind of new to this information, we get some PDFs and some infographics and things that get you started today. Literally, you can start right away getting the materials that you need, getting started cleaning yourself out. Join a community of serious people. You need accountability. If you really want to be successful on this path, accountability is so important. Having the support is so important. And of course, the information and the knowledge. We're going to bring all that to you within the Mucus-free Life membership. Go down below, click a link, join us in there, get yourself some sun bath. Ain't nothing like it. Ain't nothing like that sun. Love it. Absolutely love it. It makes it a pleasure to be alive, to have the opportunity to, when it's here, it's like I give praise and thanks when I have the opportunity. When the sun's here, tomorrow it could be gone. It could be raining, and I give thanks for the rain. But for right now, super happy that the sun is out. So I'm about to go get me a little sun bath myself. So thank you so much for tuning in. And before you go right here, there's another video handpicked for you that I think you'll really enjoy. Click right here, and I will see you over there. Peace, love, and breath.